Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by both of my co-hosts today, Tyler Britton and Jacob Boyers. Guys, there's actually been a good amount of news in the Kentucky sphere of things down in Lexington. First things first, the legendary number 11, 6'4", from Kentucky, John Wall. Jacob, he retires finally from the NBA. What's your favorite John Wall memory, either at Kentucky or his time in Washington?
Sure. I feel like we've talked about this quite a bit lately, but just for me, it's just the memory of kind of John Wall making the Kentucky program cool again. There's obviously a ton that goes into it, but coming out in Big Blue Madness, doing the dance, and then coming out and being, the best player in college basketball that year and showing it. And his first game here, he hits a game winner against Miami of Ohio, and then countless highlight plays in that Carolina game, and just putting Kentucky back on the map. And he made this program so fun and electric. Calipari probably doesn't even have the career he does if John Wall doesn't kind of make this place the cool place again. So for me, it's just how cool John Wall was. Every kid after he left had those Reebok zigzag shoes. I know I did, and we're 7th or 8th grade on my basketball team, wearing the two-tone color sleeves, and it was all because of number 11.
You know what I'd love to go back in time and see is the 7th or 8th grade Jacob Boyers in the paint, down low, backing some guys down with a nice little spinning left hook. I can already see it now, just a little post-work genius down there.
I was always the short kid, but back in my skinny days, I could get up and down the floor and knock a couple shots down.
Sounds like a miniature John Wall himself there, a little electric with the ball in his hands. I would say, there's so many great memories with John Wall. Really, the Calipari era, that's the start of it. Who knows how it goes without him? I know Julius Randle came out and said that was one of the main reasons he ended up going to Kentucky was because of what John Wall did there and how many guys followed him after. You mentioned that Miami of Ohio game. How in the world did we need a last-second shot from John Wall? Don't get me wrong, this was 2009, and I was 11 years old at the time, so I don't remember quite exactly. But how in the world did we need a last-second shot to beat Miami of Ohio?
Well, I remember, to your point of not remembering the game, I'll never forget I had basketball practice that night, and my dad was waiting out in the truck for me to, pick me up, and I get in, and he's like, "This game is tied." And there's, a minute left or whatever, and I'm like, "Tied? They're playing Miami of Ohio." And we were driving home on the highway, and I'll never forget just hearing Tom Leach scream right as Wall knocks down the basket. But, that was probably like one of their 5 closest games throughout the entire year. So.
Crazy. That whole season was crazy. It was just electric. Barack Obama called the team at some point during the season.
Hello, Mr. President. This is DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah. So many great things to come from that team. But there is big breaking SEC news today on Thursday. Instead of there being an 8-game conference schedule, there's going to be a 9-game conference schedule for the SEC football program. And Jacob, money-wise, I love it for the university and for Kentucky. It's going to bring us a lot more money. Outside of that, that's where the love for me stops because that more than likely means one more loss added to the schedule every single season.
Yeah, you talk about this schedule being tough, and people talked about last year's schedule being tough. We're going to look back at it in 10 years and be like, those are the 2 easiest schedules we played in the past 10 years. You're getting rid of the cupcake. I know a lot of people were really concerned with possibly losing the Louisville game. The fact the SEC came out and said that they got to play one more power program or, a team from a power conference as well. I think Kentucky will obviously keep Louisville, but, you're talking about 10 games every year that you don't really know if the Cats are going to win. Some of those good teams, some of our best teams might only win 7 games going forward, and it'll be a struggle to get there.
Basically what you're talking about, like just putting it in this year's terms, just adding another SEC program and losing Toledo, Eastern Michigan, or Tennessee Tech. So one of those, guaranteed wins that you have that are used as a tune-up game, or even in the area of Tennessee Tech, kind of like a bye week to get healthy and get right later in the season. that's gone. And even if you say you add, an Arkansas or a team like that that's even middle of the pack in the SEC, and right now we're under the middle of the pack in the SEC, so that's going to be a team that we're probably not favored on winning.
Yep. I mean, just imagine if this year you had to get rid of Toledo and play an A&M or even an Alabama or something I know I've been pretty negative about the record and everything, but you want to talk about real negative, you only have two, non-power 4 conference teams on your schedule. That's going to be brutal.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking from the SEC in a total view here, it's probably going to help get more SEC teams into the college football playoff, adding that extra game. I mean, we also know how many teams already are in the top 25 this year. Add another top 25 matchup, gives you another chance to have a nice win going into the college football playoff. Gives you that one more extra victory or just power win that you can look at and look at your resume and say, hey, this is why we deserve to get in. Kind of what Ole Miss was lacking last year, and hence why, we're going to talk about it. That's the second game of the season when we play Ole Miss. They're probably going to come back here for revenge. So, any other takeaways from the SEC adding that ninth game?
No, I think in part they're doing it too with the playoff is gonna be expanded to 16 teams here soon. So I think obviously this will be a way for more of them to kind of get in. Real quick, they did say you'll play 3 teams every single year. Who do you guys think our 3 will be? I'll say probably Tennessee, South Carolina, and then the third I really don't have any idea. Maybe Missouri. Maybe you got to think about who's not playing other people. Maybe Vandy, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't even know if we technically do the East and West SEC anymore, if that's even still.
Yeah, they won't. I would assume it'll be kind of like that.
I assume it's say something like that. So feels like we play Georgia, South Carolina every single season.
I hope it's not Georgia.
I don't want it to be them either. I'd rather it be Vanderbilt. I mean, let's take one of the teams that's closest to us.
Yeah.
But I'd probably say Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee. Maybe flip one of those for Florida. I would say that'd probably be one of the 3 that we face every year.
Hey, why don't we get to a point where Kentucky's just one of those teams that teams don't want to play us anymore? Like, that'd be great too, right? Come on.
Yeah, it would, but we went 48 last year, so let's.
I would like to be 6'4" and skinny, but
Yeah,
we're doing this half marathon training, Warriors. If you want to join us,
I ain't getting to that 6'4".
Yeah, we are. If this was college football 25 or 26, we would desperately be rebuilding and going to the elite recruiter mindset. So we still got some time here, but hopefully, Mark Stoops is the guy to lead us back in that direction after he says and the entire staff says, well, 1-year blip. I personally don't see it as that. I see it as a 3-year blip. I know there's varying opinions of that because some of the older fans remember this team when they were constantly going 2-10, 4-8, so a 7-6, 7-5 season was good for them. I've personally been disappointed by each of the past 3 years. I don't know what you guys think, just when it comes to the comments from the coaching staff on this being a 1-year blip. What you guys think on that?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it, at length multiple times. But I mean, briefly, I'll say, I agree with you in the fact that I don't think it's been a 1-year blimp either. I think, you can kind of see this program getting away from Mark Stoops now. It does feel like with the discipline and other things around, he is kind of reeling it in. For me, it was never necessarily the record, right? Like, there are a lot of times you can say 7-5, and I think, that's a heck of an accomplishment for Kentucky, even 6-6. But when you're kind of, we got passed by the teams that Mark Stoops has built us to be better than, right? When he got here, we passed Vandy. And then from there, we started to consistently beat South Carolina. We got to a point where we either beat or played close Florida every single year. The next step was kind of that Tennessee. You played at Georgia for a couple times where, in October, if you win it, you're first in the SEC East. So I just think from that to you get your tail kicked by South Carolina multiple years in a row. Eli Drinkowitz is killing you at Missouri, and you've lost 2 of the last 3 to Vandy. I think it's more than just a 1-year blip, even though they did make some bowls and, go 7-5 in a couple of those seasons. I think it was handful of the other factors that I think led to so much disappointment around this program.
Yeah, completely agree. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what we can do turning around the team this year. Just giving some thought over the last few days. Kind of bring up to the points that you guys were bringing up with the previous records, previous 3 years compared to just last year. Yeah, I think there's some opportunity for this team to do better. It sounds like they're trying to really rebuild a culture here. I'm going to have some optimism going into this year's schedule when we break down game by game here in a minute. But I'm not saying that we're playoff bound, but I'm not saying that we're going to do any worse than last year. I think there's opportunity to grow from last year for sure.
This guy just truly politicianed me and did not answer any part of the question at all. But I love it.
He's good at that.
We're talking about positivity, and I love to hear it around here. Guys, let's go ahead and start off. In 9 days, football's back in the Bluegrass. Kentucky versus the Toledo Rockets. The Chip Trainum Bowl, it looks like. Guys, we're only a 7.5-point favorite. I don't know if that scares you a little bit. Obviously, I'll go ahead and start off here. I have the Cats winning, and I'm going to have them covering that 7.5-point spread. I just don't think that they come out there. They've heard the negativity. They've heard everything the offseason. Even if they said they haven't, they've heard everything that's surrounding this football program. Toledo is a pretty good team. There's a good chance that they are the non-power conference team that gets invited to the college football playoff. With that being said, I still think Kentucky at home, opening weekend, they find a way to beat Toledo and cover the 7.5-point spread.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if they cover that 7.5, I'll feel pretty good. Honestly, for me, this is just a game you win. I don't care. I'm not going to be disappointed if they go out there and they kind of win on the last second field goal, to be honest with you guys. You have to win this game if you're going to have, obviously, any type of success for the season. But you mentioned it, Cam, Toledo is really good. And they know if there's going to be a world where they, go 11-1 and sneak into the college football playoff as that non-power team, they got to beat, a Kentucky. So there's a world where, both of these teams are playing for a ton there week one. But I do expect Kentucky to win. I'll say Kentucky wins by exactly a touchdown, and depending where that line finishes at, they don't cover. But I'll say Kentucky wins, and you just kind of have to. I'm going to be interested to see how this offense performs. But I'll say Kentucky wins 24-17, somewhere in that ballpark.
Score prediction already, man.
Throwing it out there. Let's get after it.
I was going to wait for next week to get that from you, but I love it. I'm going to take the next week or so to figure out.
I'm going to change my mind in a week, so.
I've already got you locked in. I've got you locked in. Tyler, what do you got for week one for the Cats?
Well, Cameron, I'll be honest too. I have my score predictions already, but as you know, I won't be here next week, so I'll go ahead and give mine this week, and you go ahead and mark me down for them. I have a little more optimism going into this game. I do think that if there's a trap game on our schedule that is not in our favor, then this one's the trap game for sure. Toledo just seems to find a knack to beat these Power 4 conference teams randomly. So hopefully it's not us this year, but look, we have an 81% chance to win this game, almost 82% chance of winning this game. Cam, I know you hate that stat, but
I was hoping we could get past this entire season without hearing the percentage chance to win this year. And he brought it up 9 days before the season started.
I know our last 5 games of the season last year weren't in our favor, but Toledo last year lost to Akron and Ohio U, and we absolutely demolished Ohio U. So I definitely have my optimism. My score going into this is going to be a 31-17 win. I think we come out swinging. We have a bunch of new guys. I don't think there's a lot of film on our overall roster that's going to be out there. So I think it gives us the edge going into Toledo or Toledo coming into Kentucky for a home opener win.
I would love it. I'm picking them to win. I do want to say, last year, they took the belt to Mississippi State. Now, granted, Mississippi State was awful last year, and they're supposed to be awful this year. Mississippi State's only projected to win one less game than we are, and they beat them last year 41-17. So like Jacob mentioned, like you mentioned, Tyler, this is the game that the Cats have to be up and ready for. This can't be, those traditional Mark Stoops week one game where this team just kind of sleepwalks in, doesn't really show up until the second half, and then starts to get going. All right, so we've all got them starting 1-0. I think everybody would be pretty comfortable with getting that win at Toledo, even if we aren't over the moon about it. Then Ole Miss comes to town. We already mentioned Lane Kiffin's going to be scratching to get back at Mark Stoops after keeping him out of the college football playoff last year. Jacob, I'll go ahead and start with you on this one. Ole Miss travels to Lexington. Who do you got winning this one?
Yeah, this is one, honestly, I've kind of gone back and forth, not necessarily, for a win or loss, but, like, part of me is pretty scared about this game. I know, we've said Ole Miss isn't going to be near as good as they probably were last year. We talked kind of in length about them last week. I just think pretty much a whole off season of Lane Kiffin, feeling that embarrassment last year. I kind of feel like he's going to come out and want to prove a point and drop as many points on Mark Stoops as he can. So I do think Ole Miss wins. I think Kentucky's honestly going to probably have a hard time staying in it, and I think Ole Miss kind of wins pretty easily.
All right, Tyler, throwing the ball over to you. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with you guys here. I think that Ole Miss is going to find a way to win. This is the revenge game. We stole one from them last year. Good old Lane Kiffin with his flop scheme is just going to come out and it's going to somehow bite us there at the end. I have it a close game, actually. I still feel like it's going to be a close battle. I have us losing 24-20.
I know this guy. We're like 3 weeks out from this game, and he's got score predictions for every single
Put
game.
money on the spread already.
Yeah, is there any reason why you're already going score predictions and everything so early in the season?
I just have good confidence in this team. I know what we're going to be doing. I think you guys will be generally surprised in some of the score predictions throughout the year here, and how accurate they're going to be when we get to the game.
Well, good confidence. You did just have them losing, so I guess not too much confidence, but I'm going to take a different route here from you guys win this Ole Miss game. I really just don't think this Ole Miss team is going to be anything that Lane Kiffin has had down there in Oxford over the past couple seasons. But, Jacob, I do like a point that you bring up. If there's going to be a game where Lane Kiffin overperforms this year and Ole Miss overperforms and really just plays out of their mind, I think it's going to be this game. If you think about the Ole Miss-Kentucky games, even over the past 3-4 years, each one of those are usually one score, and they've, tend to have gone Ole Miss's way. Kentucky finally got one down there in Oxford. I agree with you. If Ole Miss is going to win this game, I think it's going to be a blowout, and Kentucky fans are going to be leaving Kroger Field at halftime. But with that being said, I think the way that Kentucky's going to play football and the way that Ole Miss is going to play is just not going to be a good matchup for Ole Miss, and I think the Cats are going to start off 2-0 here, get a win against Ole Miss, back-to-back against Lane Kiffin, and it really starts to get his seat hot down there in Oxford.
If Kentucky does win, that seat for Lane is heating up, and that's really all Ole Miss fans talk about last year is like, how did we lose to Kentucky? A team we were their only SEC win. That was the game that kept them out of the playoffs. I just think Lane's going to have so much to prove in that game, and I would just find it hard that he doesn't get that one for them.
Yeah, mine is more not even an indictment on Lane. It's more just the talent on the team that I think he has. They're losing a lot of pieces. They lost Trey Harris. They lost Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle, Princely Umamuelen, who Tyler tried to make sure he was still on the team for this year. They just lost it. Jackson Dart. They lost a lot of guys. I just think it's a lot to put on. That's going to be Austin Simmons' first career start in the SEC. I think it's a lot for what's going to be a true sophomore. I just don't think they'll have it in them. I got them 2-0. You guys both have them 1-1. Eastern Michigan comes to town. Good thing we don't have to go play them on that gray field. That gray field is just an abomination. It's the worst looking thing I've ever seen.
We were supposed to go there.
Well, I'm glad we're not.
We bought out of it, but we originally were scheduled to go to East Lansing.
Yeah, the state of Michigan sucks. Everything about it sucks, if I'm being honest. I got Kentucky winning this game pretty easily. This is going to be their biggest win of the season.
Yeah, not a whole lot to kind of talk about here, but I think Kentucky obviously gets this one.
Eastern Michigan is always a lower tier team, especially you're talking about the MAC. They went 5-7 last year as a record. I don't think there's a prayer that Eastern Michigan wins. And look, I played on that field. It is not a great field. It was back when it was grass. It was not great then. It didn't get any better with the gray field. So I know they're not playing there, but there's no way they're practicing to play well.
Former collegiate athlete Tyler Britton. All right.
Yep.
So,
He was so confident in that I actually think now Kentucky might lose.
yeah, usually.
Score prediction, 42-10 on that.
All right, enough of the score predictions. Too early in the season. All right, guys. So I've got Kentucky starting off 3-0. You guys both have them at 2-1. Then we go at South Carolina.
Getting the meat of the schedule.
We're going to get to it here because this is a tough 3-game stretch here. Going to South Carolina, going out to Columbia, I don't see a way in which this team's going to be able, first off, to keep Dylan Stewart off of either quarterback, whichever one is going to be at that time. Jake, I know you're really riding this Cutter news that we've been hearing a lot lately. I know you're riding it, and I know you're waiting for it, but I still think this will be Calzada's time, especially if they're 3-0 at this point.
Yeah,
this is where I see them taking their first loss. I just don't think they're going to match up well with South Carolina. And unfortunately, Shane Beamer, as much as I hate to say it, has kind of had Stoops' number as of late.
Yeah, I also obviously have a loss. You kind of saw what they did to us here last year. I don't think our offense is going to have enough to move the ball and keep up with a team that scored, 30 points a game last year and has most of their starters back on the offensive side. So, even our defense, I think, will keep them under, probably their season average. But even then, I just don't know if our offense is going to have enough to go score in the high 20s to go win a game at South Carolina. So I got the Cats dropping to 2-2.
Yeah, you guys both bring up fantastic points with how they came in. They won pretty convincingly last year. But listen, I'm going to do the reverse here. I think that last year was kind of a weird year. We started off, we did a 3-quarter game against Southern Miss to open the season, and we were all hyped up. And then South Carolina came in, and no one knew who Lenora Sellers really was on the field just yet. We just knew he was some sort of marquee name that was a freshman, whatever. And we just didn't perform well. I think this year we actually play better going to South Carolina. I do think that we do get the dub here, so I match Cam here with 3-1, keeping it a close game, 28-24.
I think something to remember about last year, this was the game that kind of started the Brock Vandergrift going to retire train because he got absolutely worked in that game, unfortunately.
Well, it's not Brock Vandergrift, and it's not the same O-line.
That's true. These are facts.
That South Carolina defense did lose a lot to the NFL draft, so I do see that defense taking a step back. But like Jake mentioned, they have a lot of that offense returning. So I think that offense is going to be just too much for us to keep them off. And I don't think we're going to be able to score enough points, even with the depleted defense that I think they're running out there with. And, they just have so many playmakers on the offensive side of the ball that I think they're going to be able to score quick. And I think we've mentioned how our offensive game plans are going to go. We're not really planning on scoring quick with a lot of explosive plays. We're trying to be meticulous in moving the ball down the field. So I just don't think it's a good matchup. But this is one I'd obviously love to be wrong on.
Absolutely.
You kind of mentioned the meat of the schedule here. A 3-game stretch, man, where you go at South Carolina, at Georgia, and then Texas at home. Who at the SEC was looking at it and they were like, you know what? Screw the state of Kentucky here. How about South Carolina, Georgia, and Texas? Let's see if you can fight through that, fellas.
Yeah. I know I've said a lot. I don't think this schedule is as tough as people act like. But I will say this 3-game stretch is – it's by far the 3 hardest games on the schedule, and you got them back to back to back. So this is the one stretch I will listen to people complain about the schedule a little bit.
Well, I'm going to complain about it right now. You just heard it there. I know we have a bye week sandwiched in between one of these, but still, even then, Stoops doesn't perform well off a bye week, so that's might not even be a good thing for us to have that bye week moved in there. At Georgia, we just don't perform at Georgia. Georgia at Kroger Field, we usually keep it close and keep it, competitive, and somehow usually find ourselves in that game. At Georgia, we just get our tail waxed no matter how good our team is. I remember that 2021 team going down into Georgia. Those were times where you can still find screenshots of ESPN analysts putting Kentucky into the 14 playoff at the time. and you're like, oh man, this is the year, and we go down there and we get rolled. So I mean, if that team doesn't have the chance to do it against that Georgia team, it's just not going to be a close game. Even though I'm not as big on Georgia as I think a lot of other people are throughout the SEC, I find Kentucky going 3-2 here and losing to Georgia.
Yeah, I obviously have them losing. I disagree slightly. I don't think they win. There's not a world where Kentucky wins, but I know they haven't performed well at Georgia, but I do think they find a way just to kind of keep this close and maybe build some optimism for some people. But I don't expect this team to find a way to win this game or, pull any type of miracle upset. But I think this will be the game where people are like, this was kind of a classic Mark Stoops performance. You might only score, 16 points, but you find a way to hold Georgia to the low 20s and you lose.
I mean, I'll take it because I just don't see this one happening at any sort, and I don't really see it being close. We don't do well down in Athens between the hedges, so.
I mean,
Tyler, unless you got some groundbreaking, something in your back pocket that you can throw to me to try and switch me from this Boyers negativity to some positivity, I think I'm going to stick here with the loss.
See, what you guys are forgetting is that throughout the course of the season, there's a lot of injuries that are going to be coming this way. So Georgia, at this point of the year, is going to have some significant injuries. We're just not going to see it coming. We don't know who it's going to be yet, but it's going to significantly hinder Georgia, which is why the score is only going to be 21-14 in favor of Georgia instead of Cats winning. But it's going to be a much closer game than I think you're thinking of, Cam. But I do agree in your takes. I think that Georgia's just going to cover us all across the board here. I just think they have an overall better roster. They're going to be contending late in the year, kind of different from our situation.
Jacob, would you like to change your prediction now that you heard Tyler have something somewhat similar?
Yeah, I think it's going to look more like that Devin Leary year when they lost 51 to or 13, whatever the hell it was back in. You want to talk about being disappointed for a game? That was maybe one of. I mean, we were what, like 5-0? Were we 5-0 at that point? 5-0
at that time, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I played golf that day. I was so excited. I got picked up from the golf course. I Ubered home. I ordered pizza for right when I got there. I had a couple buddies come over. I think my dad came over. I'm like, look, we're going to eat some pizza, watch Kentucky, maybe find a way to, hang in this game. And that was the first time we saw Brock Vandergrift after he got to for Stetson Bennett and play mop up. Or I guess it was Carson Beck at that point. But yeah, just brutal.
It truly was, and unfortunately, I got a feeling that it's going to happen again this year. And finally, mercifully, the end of this ridiculous 3-game stretch that we have here. Arch Manning in Texas coming to town, Lexington. Tell you what, that's going to be an insane weekend. I mean, there's a chance that you have Big Blue Madness that weekend on that Friday before, Keeneland going the entire weekend, and the Texas Longhorns coming. If I still drank, that'd be a 3-day bender of a lifetime. But the only thing I'll be drinking for is to mourn the Cats' loss after Arch and the team. I think this is actually one that they do keep close, if I'm going to be honest. I think I like them better. I think they have a better shot of competing in this game against Texas than they do against Georgia, even though I think Texas is the better team. I think they just match up a little bit better. Arch is still unproven, even if you have all the confidence in him in the world. I think Kentucky finds a way to keep this within 10 points. I'm not going to say one possession, but I think they find a way to keep it within 10, but they ultimately lose.
Yeah, we're kind of flip-flopping our Georgia and Texas predictions here. No secret. I said Texas is going to be my pick to win the national championship, and I think this is just unfortunate. We're going to probably hit a freight train that we're not going to be able to slow down and stop. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of Texas fans here that weekend, and I think they're just going to have one big party as they kind of roll Kentucky.
Yeah, boys, I'm on the same page with you again, actually. 35-10 is my score prediction, unfortunately. And I think it's just the combination of Arch Manning and the talent that he's going to have around him. I think the only real question mark that they have on offense is going to be that O-line, just losing a lot of leadership there to the draft. But I think they'll bounce back overall as a team, as a unit. It's going to be really tough for Kentucky to match up. Again, another team that I think is going to be competing late into the year. We forget that this team was maybe a player or two away from being in the national championship themselves. So,
Yep, completely agree. I think they'll manage to keep that one somewhat close. I'm not saying it's going to be something where you ever think they're going to win the game, but maybe a late score to keep it within 10 points, something of that nature. All right, guys. And unfortunately, the 3-game losing streak that I have for the Cats, Jacob, you also have a 3-game losing streak as well. Tyler's only got him with a 2-game losing streak going into this game, but we got to face the Tennessee Volunteers, in which just seems like we never have any luck beating this team. We do have them at home. Usually helps a little bit, not playing them down in Neyland. And while I do think this Tennessee team is going to be a lot worse than they were last year and just previous years in general, I think it's going to be a real close game. I think it's going to be something that comes down to either a field goal or a touchdown, a late score like that. Unfortunately, I just think this is going to be one of those games where you look back and you're like, man, we had so many chances and opportunities to win this game, and we kind of just found a way to lose. Unfortunately, that's kind of what I think is going to happen with this Tennessee game.
Yeah, this is kind of a game where, like, if you have some confidence in Kentucky, you can easily say, like, this is going to be a game you win. I know they haven't put a timeout, but I think they said it would either be, like, either the 3:30 or 4 or the night game. You get Tennessee at home. I just unfortunately can't pick Kentucky to beat Tennessee because we never beat Tennessee. And, even the years where they're not very good, which this team I don't think is very good. I mean, maybe our best team ever in the 2018 team still went and played a very bad Tennessee team and lost. I can't pick us to beat Tennessee, so I'm going to say Tennessee wins.
yeah, I'm going to be on the same train here. This is a tough one. This is the first game where I have Kentucky going into going 3-4 here. So now we're in a losing category overall as a record here. But I think it comes down to 3 key components here for this game. I think overall I'm looking at Tennessee's run game going against Kentucky's front 7. I do see that being competitive, so I don't necessarily see that as the nail in the wall there. The turnover battle and finishing drives, I do see Kentucky actually be better in that category this year versus last year. Is that going to be enough? And then I think the third thing that is going to overall decide this game is Kentucky's overall offensive production for this year. Unfortunately, I just don't see getting it just enough points to beat Tennessee, even with all the changes that they have. I just think that we fall a score short of winning this game, even at home.
Yeah, I mean, this would be one that this could be where the season really changes, because think about it, if you take care of business those first 3 games, even with the next 3 that you have, come out of 3-3, I think you're still feeling good about the team, even though you've lost 3 straight. That Tennessee game, I think it's really one to where the wheels could fall off, or that's where you could really start getting some momentum and going towards the easier part of the schedule if it has one. So I think this is going to be a huge game for the Cats. This is where they can take off and just be a lot better than everybody thought they could be, or it's one of those games that it just proves this is a Kentucky team that we expected, and that's why their over/under was 4.5 wins for the season. All right, guys, at Auburn came here last year, could have won that game, and for that reason alone. Just kidding, not that reason alone. A lot of it's because Hugh Freeze is spending more time on the golf course than Jacob Boyers back when he used to work at DeVue. I mean, he's spending more time out there. Exactly. He's out there all the time. But Auburn did have a really good transfer class, but I don't trust anything Hugh Freeze does or is doing, whether that's on the field or off the field. I got Kentucky winning this game. They should have beat them last year, and that was at a time where Kentucky was playing very bad and very just out of control with guys not playing, not showing up, doing stuff like that. I think Kentucky finds a way to beat Auburn. It's the record back to 500, at least for me, at 4-4. Jacob, can I get you in the positive mindset here?
This is the one. I do have Kentucky winning this one. Hopefully I'm wrong about a couple of these games prior, and they can then come in and win this one and get to 500. But as somebody that was assigned to kind of deep dive into Auburn last week, I just don't think this is a very good team. And I know you go there, and on paper they're probably more talented than Kentucky, but I just think it's a team that's going to struggle a lot offensively, and this is the kind of game Kentucky matches up, I think, pretty well for. They're not going to have to go out and score, in the high 20s, low 30s to go win this game. I say that, and then Auburn will come out and drop 40 on us. But I just think this is a game where if you just kind of don't turn the ball over, run the football like this team's going to want to do, and play some defense, this is one where I can see Kentucky getting back in that win column and finally snapping that 4-game losing streak I had them on.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up some interesting points. I look at this game as kind of like what I alluded to earlier with the Kentucky-Toledo game, where I said Toledo could be the trap game for us in the terms of the games that we're supposed to win. I think that Auburn, we're the trap game for Auburn in this case. You look at Auburn and some of the weaknesses from last year with their offensive inconsistencies and their red zone efficiency problems. That's what cost them late in the year this year. I do, however, have them kind of covering that this year against us, and so it's going to be a very tough battle. I think the home field advantage ends up doing it for Auburn. Auburn wins this game in a very close game, 24-25.
Jacob, I can just say something to you here. Now I'm relieved because I was thinking there was going to be a clean sweep around the board, 3-3, and I was like, all right, that's a guaranteed loss now. So with Tyler taking the loss there for Auburn, now I feel great about this Auburn matchup, and I think the Cats will find a way to win. Tyler, you mentioned the trap game you thought there for Auburn. I think that's what this is for Florida the following week coming into Lexington. They're playing Kentucky later in the season than they have ever, and it's sandwiched in between playing Georgia and Ole Miss. I think if there's a game that Kentucky's going to steal, that I'm going to pick them to lose this game just because, as of right now, everybody's healthy down in Florida. Well, this is a game that, it's week 6, week 7. DJ Lagway's not playing for whatever reason. He's injury prone as is, like every other Florida quarterback ever, it seems like. Anthony Richardson, shout out, sit on the bench on Saturday. Jacob, first off, 4th overall pick on Anthony Richardson.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. And this guy says he's not going to play in the preseason game on Saturday because he didn't win the job. This guy's a clown. All right, but back to this.
Vito Tisdale said it best real quick before we move on. That boy is hot dog water. Cam Newton, that boy is hot dog water.
I completely agree with you there. I'll tell you what, I'm going to, just for my schedule predictions, because I didn't want to go too over the top in positivity land, I'm going to take this one as a loss for the Cats. Well, this is one, like I said, if we got to week 6, week 7, and we're looking at the schedule, looking at the depth charts of who's, on the injury report and things like that, I think there's a real chance Kentucky can win this game, especially with Florida having to face Georgia right before us and Ole Miss right after. Could be one of those games that's overlooked.
This is the game for me that I think the entire Kentucky season is going to come down to. I am going to pick Florida in a close one, but this is the game that it's obviously a winnable game. You got them at home. The Lagway injury concerns, you're getting them in November. It's going to be a little cooler up here. This is the game that's going to be, in my opinion, the difference between, 5 and 7 and then, going 6 and 6 and making a bowl. You can tell which way I'm leaning because I'm going to pick a loss, but by the time that Florida game rolls around here in however many weeks, there's a really good chance I kind of flip that prediction. But as of now, I just think Florida will just make one more play somewhere along the game to win. But this is the game that the whole season, I believe, comes down to.
Or they could, be allowed to play past the play clock going down and not get a delay of game called. Could be something like that happens once again.
You want to talk about some memory lane real quick? I saw the clip today of when 2021 when Levis and Wandell were here and Kroger Field is rocking, and the whole time I was watching that highlight I was like, man, I want to get back to that. So who knows, maybe this year we get back to it in that Florida game and place is rocking and we come out and block a kick and run it back for a touchdown again.
Yep, Trevin Wallace, man, that ended up being a 3rd-round pick and playing pretty well for the Panthers. Who would have thought that was his true freshman season? Just crazy to go down memory lane when you look at stuff like that 4 years later. Tyler, we've both taken losses. say a loss here, so that means it's a win.
Yeah, this is a very interesting game here on the schedule because on my schedule, this is I'm following a 4-game lose streak. They're now sitting there at 3-5 coming into this game, and I'm actually going to use Boyer's prediction at some point. This is where the team starts to panic a little bit, and I say, hey, you know what? Put Cutter Bully in. It's deja vu all over again. We're putting him in against Florida. And what does the offense do? They do something different. It seems magical at times, and then other times you're like, well, what are we doing? I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think I think it will be a battle. It'll be an opportunity for Kentucky to sit there and say, hey, this is our home turf. We want to change our season around, but I don't see us winning this game. I see a very close 18-17 in favor of Florida. We end up at 3-6.
I genuinely have no idea where you're pulling these
Yeah.
numbers. Season. You're going with obscure scores here.
Wasn't this the guy that 2 weeks ago said we're gonna go surprise people and win 8 games, and now he's got us at 3-6 through 9.
That wasn't my season preview. That was yeah.
Here at this point. So,
I mean, about me being Mr. Negative, Cam. I think might be someone on this podcast that's been pulling our leg all off season.
Well,
I'm realistic.
If he's negative about this next game, then we really got to talk to you. Kentucky's got Tennessee Tech coming in, and I know I said earlier that Eastern Michigan's probably going to be their biggest win. I spoke wrong. It's going to be this Tennessee Tech game. Kentucky's just going to roll, even if they are playing horrendous at the time, even if they are, like Tyler has them going on, a 5-game losing streak at that point. Even if they are doing that, they're still going to find a way to take care of Tennessee Tech. I think this is a win, and a win by a mile.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about Tennessee Tech other than they're not a very good football team, at least when it comes to, the power forward level. I think Kentucky, even if the season is off the rails and you've lost to Toledo and you're coming in with, one win, you get this one pretty easily.
Well, this way, if you're coming in with one win and you're seriously concerned about this game, then Stoops is actually on the hot seat.
Well, absolutely. But I'm just saying, regardless of how the season goes, I don't care if we're playing all second and third string guys. We're going to take care of Tennessee Tech.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. I was looking at this Tennessee Tech team, and maybe I got the Tennessees confused because I had Tennessee Tech last year finishing the year 5-game win streak, and I got worried. Except I wasn't worried at all. So I do have a steamroll in them, 40-3. I just had to give you guys a little bit pause the cause there on my take, but absolutely, we're going to steamroll this. This kind of reminds me of that Ohio State game last year, kind of a midseason buffer for us. Didn't do much in the whole scheme of things, but at the same time, it was that blip in the radar that said, hey, you know what, let's go steamroll another team because we're pissed off. So.
It's disappointing.
I don't remember beating Ohio State, but
Ohio.
Disappointing as last year was, we must have been a little upset with Mark Stoops if we went and steamrolled Ohio State.
Ohio.
Steamrolled Ohio State and beat Ole Miss.
My alma mater, not the school I wanted to go to, the school I actually went to.
All right, guys. So I've got Kentucky with 5 wins coming into this game against Vanderbilt. 2 games left in the season. At Vandy, down in Nashville, a place we all know and love very well, but not because of the University of Vanderbilt or Vanderbilt University, whatever they call themselves, whatever the hell a Commodore is. Who knows? Jacob, I'm going to let you start here. I'm going to finish up on the back ends. I've been starting a lot of them. Jacob, give me your take for this game.
This is a game you got to win. I referenced it when we were talking about the, Stoops calling it a 1-year slide. You got to get back to being better than Vandy. It sounds kind of insane to say, but you got to get back to kind of switching with Vandy and putting them back as the doormat of the SEC and not Kentucky. I think Kentucky does. I mentioned pretty in depth last week. I don't think Vandy's going to be nearly as good as they were a year ago, and they're going to have a huge letdown. Also, for some reason, we just play them much better at Vandy than we do when they come into Kroger Field. I don't really understand it, but I think Kentucky wins, and they get that second SEC win of the year and kind of get maybe the ball rolling just a little bit. But yeah, I think Kentucky wins honestly kind of easily. This is probably the biggest win outside of the kind of stinky games you play.
Yeah, Boyers, I like what you said there. I mean, you kind of mentioned we've been alluding to it all off season. We all think that Vandy takes a little bit of a step back this year. And likewise, I think we take a positive step forward in the ways that we lost this game last year. I think we are better on fourth and short and goal line situations, even if it's just a hair or two better. I think that we're better in those categories. And I think that will ultimately be the difference in this game. Coming off of the Tennessee Tech win, we're going to go from 4-6 to 5-6, getting closer to that bowl game eligible season that we're all looking for.
I don't like the fact that we're all in agreement about winning at Vandy, but I mean that's what I'm picking here. I think at this point the Diego Pavia experiment is on its way down. He cashed in while his NIL was at an all-time high. Good for him. 50th year of college football. I mean, I think he might be able to get AARP by the end of the season, so good for him. But I got the Cats winning this game. I think, like Jacob mentioned, they play a lot better in Nashville, football-wise, for whatever reason. Now, we play there in basketball, and it's a whole different story for whatever reason. Maybe we should get Stoops and Pope to, communicate a little bit about how to win down in Nashville. And that'd be the one time that Coach Pope could take some lessons here from Mark Stoops. So I got Kentucky winning their sixth game of the season, getting bowl eligible. I know I'm already on the high end of all of you guys here as well. And unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this, we go to Papa John Stadium or whatever the hell it's called now, L&N, Federal Credit Union, State of the Mississippi State Blind or something like that. And unfortunately, we get a loss, and you got to watch the big dog go out with whatever L motion he's been doing, and you kind of just have to take it. I have Kentucky finishing 6-6 on the year, able to get to a bowl game, and honestly, what I think would be a pretty successful season based on what everybody's expecting.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Tyler. I'll go after you.
Yeah, this was a tricky game to try to analyze here. I'm not going to lie. If I'm wrong on my prediction here, it's for this game and this game alone. Otherwise, I think the rest of my predictions are going to be pretty accurate here. Look, I mean, you talk about a rivalry like this, you kind of have to throw everything out the window. It doesn't matter how good your offense is. Doesn't matter how good your defense is. I mean, you guys are playing for blood. I think what ultimately comes down to is Louisville has too much to eat on Thanksgiving Day. I think that Kentucky is able to go into the stadium and absolutely kick their butt from making up from last year. So I actually have Kentucky winning this game in another close battle, 17-14.
I love it. And I hope it's true. I can't get behind it at this moment. And let me say this before, any Louisville fans hear this or clip this or whatever. I don't think Louisville is going to be very good either. It's just more of an indictment on how we're playing at the time. I think it's going to be a close game. I just think Louisville is going to have a little bit more to play for. We will have already, at least in my predictions, have secured that bowl, and there's really not all that much to play for, even though it is a big rivalry.
Yeah, let me preface on your point. You've already made a bowl game, and my point, this is to make the bowl game. So I think there's a little bit more motivation and incentive to win this game as well. On top of it being a big rivalry game, and Kentucky wanting to seek back revenge from last year.
Yeah, I mean we've seen that happen in the past where Kentucky needed to beat Louisville last game of the season to get to a bowl game, and a lot of times it was a better Louisville team. I'm thinking about that team with Lamar Jackson. How he went in there and won that game as well. So, Jacob, I got the Cats falling. Tyler's got them winning. Break the tie here. What do the Cats do in the final game of the season?
There's also a very real world, not because Louisville, I think, is going to be great or anything, but there's a very real world they're coming in playing to go to the playoff. I mean, you look at their schedule, they play 3 ranked teams all year. They find a way to win one of those. They could, be sitting there at 9-2 coming in ready to go to the playoff. I've been the most negative person on this podcast, and it's not even close. But God damn it, Cam, there is no way in hell I will ever pick Louisville to beat Kentucky. It's L's down forever. The big dog, little dog. We're going to come in. I never thought there would be a world I would talk myself into 6 wins with this team. And in part, I think it is because of the, quote-unquote schedule. I don't think it's as bad as, we act like. I think if this team's sitting here at 5 wins, going into that Louisville game the 2 days after Thanksgiving, Mark Stoops just finds a way in those kind of situations. He will find, as critical as I've been of him over the last 2 years, and I've been very, very critical, there will be some way he will get them fired up. He will get them playing out of their mind, and they will go out there. They will force Louisville into some turnovers. They will find a way to make a big play somewhere along the way on defense that sets them up to win this game. And I agree. If this team comes out and wins 6 games, I think it's a big accomplishment. And I'm going to say it. I think this team kind of gets hot towards the end of the year, and they find a way to beat Louisville. And we're throwing the L's down in Vince's face, and I can't wait to watch everybody chirp him on Twitter and throughout the stadium. I mean, the guy left for Louisville. You don't think Mark Stoops is going to have those guys in that locker room ready, fired up? The guys he brought in and recruited and said he left you for your biggest rival. And if there's something to play for, obviously, if they're at 4 wins, yeah, you probably come out and get rolled again. But if there's something to play for, he will find a way to get them fired up, and Kentucky will win. And I will never pick Louisville to beat Kentucky. I don't care if they're a 28.5-point favorite again. We will go in there and beat them again.
Yeah, boys, I just want to bring up, I'm very disappointed in our founder and CEO for not picking the opposite way in this game.
I mean,
that's just very disappointing, and I think that this podcast should be sold to someone who actually respects it. Boyers, I nominate you.
I understand it, but the words literally can't come out of my mouth. I think I would vomit trying to say it.
There's a reason
I figured Cameron Johnson was a true fan, but I guess maybe he's not.
There's a reason I didn't say that team was going to win. I said Kentucky was going to lose. There's a reason I never said it, and there's a reason I'm not going to say it. But, Jacob, there's a couple things there that you said that I want to dive a little bit deeper into before we sign off and give our full record predictions. You said Louisville might be fighting for a playoff spot. It's the ACC, and I get it, but they're not beating Miami and or Clemson, so they're not going to be fighting for a playoff spot.
I think if you just look at the way college football went last year, I mean, there's a real world if because they'll get a good win against SMU. I don't think Miami's that good. I know they have to go there.
That good.
I agree. I just think, but my point again was, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I'm not saying 100% they're going to be fighting for a playoff, but how sweet would it be if they did come in at 9-2 and people were putting them as kind of that 11th, 12th team in, and then we kick them out?
Yeah, I mean, be very sweet. And like I said, I'd love it. In a weird way, guys, we all took different paths to get here. Every one of us had this team going 6-6, which means this team's either going to be 8-4 or 4-8. They're not going to be anywhere close to our predictions.
I mean, a month ago I had them at 3-9, so I think
I've been my positivity. I've been feeding you for a month and a half to 2 months. You know what? The University of Kentucky needs to hire me to be a part of their PR team. Because guess what? You have people following me around. I mean, listen, Jake was the most negative person I've ever met for 2 months on this Kentucky football team. He was talking about hammering the under when it came out at 4.5. And now look at him. I've got him going a game and a half above the line. UK, that's all I'm saying. You want some good PR and some good publicity? I'm here. But, guys, all 6-6. We all have them taking different routes to get there. I just want to kind of go through, best case scenario for each of you guys, what you think is the ceiling for this team, and worst case scenario if things are to go wrong. I'm looking at my schedule right now, and I think best case scenario is probably 7-5. You flip that Florida game that I mentioned earlier, where I think depending on injuries or something like that, you could have that game flipped. So I'm looking at 7-5 as probably the best case scenario for this team. And then worst case scenario is probably, I got to say 4-8. I don't think there's a way this team only wins 3 games. I think even though, the talent has been traveled and there's a lot of older guys that are on a lot of different colleges and a lot of different stops, I just don't see this team winning 3 games or less. So I think the basement is 4-8, and I think the ceiling for them is 7-5. I've got them going somewhere in the middle there at 6-6.
I agree with you on the ceiling. I think, kind of best case, this team gets 7. I think if you kind of look at how I predicted the season to go, maybe you find a way to steal either that Florida game or, Ole Miss earlier in the season.
I already marked it down.
Yep. But so I think 7-5 is kind of the best case. I mean, even at 6-6, I got them, beating Louisville and winning at Auburn. So I don't think either one of those things are, obviously Kentucky's not going to be the favorite in it. I do disagree with you on the floor because there is a world they come out and lose to Toledo week 1. I know we don't want to talk about it, and I know I'm starting to get my positivity wheel turning here.
Don't relapse here. What are we doing?
I'm not trying to relapse. I'm just saying there is a world that a lot of these transfers aren't as good as we think. We get extremely poor quarterback play. Knock on wood, I hope none of this happens. But, I do think that there is a world where this team only wins 3 games.
I think we had piss poor quarterback play last year, and the offensive line was horrendous. And at the end, the defense couldn't stop the run. We were having to sell out to stop the run. And then we were getting beat by big plays, huge chunk explosive plays, and we still found a way to be 4-8.
I agree, but I would argue Toledo is better than a Southern Miss. So
they definitely are, but I also think this SEC slate last year, literally outside of that Ole Miss game, every single game went in the opposite direction. That Auburn game was close, and you had a chance to win.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I've completely talked myself into getting off the 3-9 train. I'm just saying that.
Don't relapse, man.
I'm not. I'm just saying what I think the floor could be. I think the floor could be 3 wins, but I don't think it's likely to happen.
All right, Tyler, give me the ceiling and the basement for this team. Don't be too negative. Jacob already tried to take me down a little bit there. I had a smile on my face.
Positivity wheels are turning. I'm on the positive train, baby. 6.
Well, I'll start with the negative, Cam, and I'll finish with the positive. How about that? And then we'll close up the pod here. But
Tyler's going to have positive as 12-0.
Absolutely. No. So I'll go with the negative. And to Boyers actually switched me because I was going to go with three wins, but I'm actually going to decrease that because he brought up a good point with Toledo being that wild card. If we come in, just a new roster, new quarterback, new everything, we just don't know what we're doing against Toledo. And Toledo, with a stable team right now, comes in and they do what they need to do to win this game. There's a real world where we could end up only winning against Eastern Michigan and Tennessee Tech, and I could see that as a very harsh reality for Kentucky. That's a very, very low season, but I think if we lose against Toledo early in the season, that really sets the tone going into Ole Miss. Cam, I know you and I split between Ole Miss and South Carolina, but that's going to be really tough to get that momentum back if we lose to Toledo. I know we have that Eastern Michigan game, but I just don't think it'll be enough to get us back on track if we lose early. That being said, the positive side here, I think that there is a real opportunity. Cam, I think that you and I are on the same page with the Ole Miss and South Carolina. We're going to win one of those. We're going to lose one of those. I don't think we're going to go 0-2. I don't think we're going to go 2-0. I think we keep it there, but I think there's a real opportunity with the points you guys made where we could beat Tennessee, where they're kind of, they're up in the air. We don't know which direction they're going to go. They have so many different directions. Their team could be this year. They could be, a playoff bound team. They could be a team that's lower on the SEC spectrum. That could be a home win for us. That could be an opportunity for us to win. And then Auburn, if we can steal a win there's an opportunity where I see us going 8-4 to finish out the year. So I'm going to give us at the high there, 8-4. It's really lopsided on my high and low, but I'm going to stick with the optimism here. Hopefully we can get that bowl game and then maybe make a playoff push.
Yeah, let me go ahead and say this right now. Toledo, very good team, actually has a good roster, and they've been producing a lot of NFL talent as of late. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Alexander, they've been producing a lot of high-end guys that have been going early in the draft. With that being said, I mean, even think if Toledo were to play teams like Auburn, Florida, or Vanderbilt, I think they're going to be right around that 7.5-point spread. I think it's going to be right around those same things. So I think when you play teams like Auburn, Florida, and Vanderbilt, I think just between those 3, you have to win one of those games. That's why I don't think the floor can be 2 wins either, because I think we'll find a way to get one of those. And I'll tell you this right now. If they only win 2 games, Tom, sign me up for the Flying Pig full marathon, and I'll go run that thing. You got that on record right now. If they only win 2 games, and guess what? I'm making that with me.
I will not be doing it with you, sir. This is a punishment against yourself, but I will hold you to it.
I will do it. If this team only wins 2 games, I will run the Flying Pig full marathon.
I don't want to see you do it. I don't want to see it for this reason. I don't want to see you do it, but I will hold it to you.
All right, guys. Well, the whole panel here has them going 6-6. Check out the breakdown to see which games we have them dropping and which ones we have them winning, picking up, and stealing. Jacob, we're 9 days away from the season. If I could have you pick, I'm throwing you on the spot here. Best football cat to wear number 9, or at least one that pops into your head that you really liked, has some good, fond memories of.
9.
I got one for you. Do you want me to throw it in there for
Yeah,
you?
I'm bad with numbers. Give me one.
Oh, Garrett Juice Johnson.
Oh,
Speaking of the game, man, Steven Johnson just bombing it down there.
28-point underdogs. You
Man,
go.
that game just dropped back. You knew he was open.
Hell's
That was
one
forever.
of the best days as a UK fan, and it wasn't even close.
I'm right there with you. 9 days until the start of the Kentucky football season. We'll be back here on Thursday to preview Toledo a little bit more in depth, give you a little bit more of a breakdown on what to expect. Is Chip Trainum going to have a revenge game on us? I don't know. Check in next Thursday with us. Follow us on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, and get the podcast wherever you can listen, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or iHeartRadio. We're everywhere. Guys, thanks for bringing some of the positivity. Everybody's got this team going bowling. And guess what? If they're going bowling, I'm taking you all bowling. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.